Driver on the Game Boy Color has always been a curiosity of mine. You all know that I'm a big fan of Driver, and I feel that some of the later handheld entries like the GBA ones or Driver 76 were all very impressive games in their own way, but not a lot's been said about the series' first handheld release. You'd be forgiven for not even knowing that this exists. Releasing in May of 2000, almost a year after the initial PS1 release, it's a top-down 8-bit version of the game, so it kind of resembles an old GTA game with the perspective, and right off the bat, it's really impressive for a Game Boy Color game. I know that sounds a bit like a backhanded compliment, but they've pulled off 3 distinct open-world cities here, and they are massive. Like when you pause the game and take a look at the map, these maps look more or less exactly like the same PS1 maps that they're based on, and it's just exceptional to see that on the Color. The UK-based Crawfish Interactive made this, who were a short-lived developer that specialised in Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games, and despite only existing from 1997 to 2002, they have a prolific resume of licensed and contracted games with a whopping 40 releases. That's about 8 games a year, and they still maintained a good reputation for what they did, and they still ambitiously pushed hardware limits pretty often, like with the X-Verse Sever games that we've looked at on the channel before. So unsurprisingly, Driver is very impressive. It runs smoothly, it has relatively decent AI for the police chasing you as well as the cars you're chasing, there's lots of traffic and stuff to run over that all physically react really nicely to impact, and just from an aesthetic point of view, you have to commend the uncluttered, clean look to the game. Like, compare this to the GTA Game Boy Color games, which are also very impressive, like perhaps even more impressive from a technical standpoint, but they really suffer from being too busy visually. Trying to add so much detail with so few pixels just ends up being an eyesore with those games, so this minimalist flat color look is way more fitting and has aged far better. I love the way the streetlights glow in LA or the boats and palm trees look in Miami. It's just detailed in all the right ways. Like, you can imagine a cute indie itch.io modern game looking just like this. It has that timeless quality. More importantly though, how does it play? Well, it's quite simple. It has old GTA controls in that A is accelerate and you turn left and right rather than pressing up on the D-pad to go up and left to go left, for example, and the handling itself is very responsive and easy to control, which is in stark contrast to the original game's handling, which, while still responsive in its own way, was all about fighting for control. Now, with the top-down perspective and the speed of the game, stuff sneaks up on you really quickly, so being able to react so quickly is actually a blessing in disguise. So it means the game is a lot simpler to control, but it is a sensible decision here with all things considered. The downside is it's just less interesting to play. Never needing to fight so hard just to straighten up your car means that it's pretty much immediately masterable, and the way the cars are a bit too small on the road and the way you can easily align the car to be dead straight often means that you can just drive down the center of a really long road for ages, confidently knowing that you won't hit anything. It's overly simple and it can at times be boring, but they've still done a good job with the driving given the limitations, and on balance it does feel pretty good. And while they've made the game sound quite easy so far, it's actually far from it, as they've done a respectable job at recreating the original Driver in a lot of other aspects, and that includes the challenge. Time limits are still tight, police are still brutal and unfair, and you still need to check the map every 30 seconds or you'll miss a corner and screw up an entire mission. Thankfully, checking the map is seamlessly quick, and they have toned down the difficulty to some extent. The police only start chasing you if you crashed into something, and I actually think they could have made some of the time limits a lot tighter just to make it all a bit more exciting. Still though, they have captured that same just made it feeling for the most part, which is commendable. They also did a great job recreating a handful of the songs in the game in chiptune, particularly the main theme, which just sounds great here. Unfortunately, there's simply not enough music. It's all good, impressive stuff, but it just gets repetitive and annoying too quickly, which is a shame. But again, the most impressive part of the game is the cities themselves. The undercover mode is somewhat the same, where you make your way through each city, completing linear missions where you're chasing people, or getting somewhere in a time limit, or getting away from the police, among other things, and the missions themselves are a smaller selection of the missions from the main game. Like, you might actually recognize the one where you smash storefronts in Miami, and they're set up through very basic text screens, replacing the cutscenes and answering machine messages. There's no non-linear mission paths anymore, so it's all pretty straightforward, and sadly, neither the brutal parking garage mission or the even more brutal President's Run mission are here, which might be a good thing depending on how much you hate them. The missions that there are only from Miami, LA, and New York because there is no San Francisco map, and I love how distinct each map is, with Miami's pastel warm colors, LA's deeper blues and yellows as it's set at night just like the main game, and New York's grays and cramped streets. If they had to leave one out, which, you know, I assume they did for like technical reasons or for time constraints, then I think that San Francisco makes the most sense because it'd be harder to keep it feeling unique among these maps like color-wise, and you can't make the most of the hills and the jumps because of the 2D top-down perspective. Like, there is no jumping in this game, and that was half the fun in San Fran. It was really like novel to me that I was able to actually recognize locations from the main game, like with the New York horse statue or the car park by the boat that you chase in Miami, and it's especially cool that the missions here are so close to the original missions. Like with that boat chase, you follow the exact same route that you do in the other game, and a lot of the other missions are the same. I actually remembered some of the routes and where to go from the original game, which I think just speaks wonders about how well they've translated it. The undercover mode only took me an hour to beat because of the easier difficulty, the lack of San Francisco, and the way fewer missions. In addition to undercover, there's a handful of solid driving games here, and of course the take-a-ride mode, which all play how you'd expect. Interestingly, you can pick your car in Take-a-Ride here, which is something that you couldn't do on Driver PS1, but you could do on Driver PC, both of which released before this, so it kind of makes sense. Really, this is just a neat, polished, little boiled-down iteration of Driver that I'm sure would have been pretty cool back in 2000, and though I don't really have much of a reason to recommend it these days beyond just curiosity because it's just so simple, I am at least glad that I had a look at it, not only for my own curiosity, but as a smaller companion piece to my main Driver video. And as a smaller video, I'm not gonna thank all my $5 patrons by name. I hope you can forgive me. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know if these smaller videos appeal to you. And click the link on the screen if you want to watch the main Driver video. I feel like you probably already have. But otherwise, thanks for watching, take it easy, and have a good one.